But I say we are delighted to welcome you, Katrine. Huge welcome to you. And she's going to be telling us all about what's going on in Christian Aid as it's pertinent to creation care. And we've done work together before, I know, so it's really exciting. So without further ado, let me hand over to Katrine. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Wanted to say it's an absolute pleasure to be with you. I am, as Julie was alluding to, I'm on secondment at the moment. So whilst traditionally I'm in the Devon and Cornwall role for Christian Aid, right now I'm in the campaigns and activism team. I've been here for about 18 months. And in the meantime, you've perhaps met with Amanda and now David Hart, who've been very kindly covering for me in Cornwall. So you might meet with David in the near future. But whilst I have really enjoyed my time with the campaigns team, I am delighted to be back with supporters, with churches, with real life people in Cornwall again this morning, and hearing your stories and your inspirational testimony of what you're all doing in your own individual areas has been lovely so far. So thank you very much for this opportunity to be with you. I thought I would give you an overview of what we've been up to in the campaigns team. It has been a very dynamic and exciting team to be part of in this year. I think you can probably all guess why, but to explain the context of where we've been coming from and what we've been building towards, our aim over the last few months has been to use the prospect of the general election. I'm sure you're all still very much buzzing from the general election, which happened so recently. We wanted to use this momentous moment to inspire, to equip, and to activate churches and supporters. We wanted to encourage you to make your voices heard by, the political, parliamentary political candidates, the PPCs, and the MPs in the run-up to the election, and to use that opportunity to call for action on the structural causes of poverty, very much the roots of poverty. We decided at Christian Aid that we would do this in collaboration with other organisations. And for the first time, we joined with some UK charities, including Church Action on Poverty, Trussell Trust, JPIT, the Joint Public Issues Team, the United Reformed, the Baptist and the Methodist Church, and with SVP, you perhaps know St. Vincent de Paul, the domestic Catholic charity. And that provided this really powerful grouping of organisations saying that we recognise that many, many churches are working with all of us and trying to find the time to support a number of local and global causes. So for this year, we've come together under one banner, under the Act on Poverty banner. And it's proved a really, really powerful and effective way to engage with churches. And I'm delighted that it gave us an opportunity to support churches both locally and nationally to think about those issues of poverty and injustice, but very importantly, to consider the actions the government should be taking in all of this, but also the power of our own agency and the ability we have to demand and call for action from our own government. So very much ensuring that candidates over the last few months have been hearing the voices of churches and communities up and down the UK and building that power of churches and supporters to engage politicians, not just this year, the year of the general election, but also for many, many years to come, and really rekindling those links between faith and politics. And it's been a very, very exciting time to be part of. Some of you have heard of the Act on Poverty course and may even have taken part in it. It's much more, though, than a 6-week course. Act on Poverty was also something that many senior church leaders got behind at the start of the year with a New Year's launch and message to say, let's make this year, this general election 2024 year, a key time for us to call on our new government to take vital action on poverty locally and globally. So very much starting the year with that call to action. In February, we held a webinar, again, the local charity alongside the global, with Christian Aid involved. And that was really well supported and followed up in the next few months with churches starting to put up banners, Let's End Poverty banners, on really auspicious church locations. They went up in the three church leaders, the three key parties, the party leaders. We made sure that churches in their constituencies featured the Let's End Poverty banner and started to build that message, that call to action. So very much it's been a coming together and a uniting of energy between us as local and global organisations, beginning with the course, but also much, much more than that.
Long-time Christian Aid supporter Margaret Robinson lives in West Down in North Devon. It's the perfect spot for a summer holiday, but it's also an area where people are living in poverty. A lack of affordable housing, low wages, and a lack of employment outside the summer season are just some of the many challenges. Margaret invited us to hear more about what her church is doing to tackle poverty, locally and globally.
Our church supports some local charities. We support the local food bank. We support a Barnstable homeless charity, and we have a community cafe. I can see that poverty in this area is getting worse. In June 2007, I spent 3 weeks in Kenya as part of a working party from a small Methodist charity, the Karibuni Trust. We saw the absolute poverty of people in the Kawangari shanty town, with thoughts of people's experiences in schools and local communities in a lot of parts of the world. I felt more motivated to campaign, to think, what can we be doing? It's our job as a church to stand with our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world. We need to amplify their experiences and speak up for change. A few months ago, we saw on the Christian Aid website that there was to be a Make Polluters Pay Day in London. And we thought, well, we could do something similar in North Devon. So we organised to meet in the square in Barnstable. Different groups were invited to come along. Local members of the community who were just interested. We had a petition which we got as many people as possible to sign. I had invited Selene Saxby, our local MP, to be part of the panel at the event. We met at Selene's constituency office and we talked about the enormous profits that BP and Shell were making. The idea was to ask Selene to come to the meeting and we would present her with the petition to take back to Parliament, and we were interested to see what was going to be the next step. Contact your MP. Christian Aid is very supportive and helpful. I am not an orator, as this video probably shows. Ordinary people can bring about change, so don't think you can't do it, because you can. From older times, the times of the prophets of the Old Testament, right through to more modern times, ordinary people have been passing on the message of change. To bring about a better world, you need to be talking to your MP.
We got there in the end. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of everything that we were building towards as a campaigns team at Christian Aid ahead of the general election, which obviously happened just a few days ago. In terms of the momentum that we built, asking churches to think about action on poverty and the intertwining of issues of inequality and the climate crisis, we did manage to find 1,400 different sign-ups to that course and a unanimous call for a shorter version as well, a potted version of the course, which I'm delighted to say will be coming out in the next few days at the end of this month, so that for those people who perhaps really loved taking part in a 6-week course in Lent of this year, would now like to become more of an ambassador role and share that call to action with others in the church or community by hosting a 2-hour version, much shorter, more condensed version, but still with the really exciting elements. There's not only a number of videos such as the one I've just shared, but also some really, really provocative and insightful audio pieces from those with lived experience of poverty and from those who are constantly working in the area as poverty practitioners as well. So very, very hard-hitting material to be used by churches and groups, getting you inspired and equipped, not least to feel able to talk to your MP, as you just heard Margaret Robinson of North Devon talking about. On that same note, myself and others in the team have set up an online drop-in, a session at the end of every month. We've chosen the last Monday of every month for something online, 7 to 8 p.m. on a Monday evening, faith into action sessions, and they're open to anybody, anyone who'd like to come along. Perhaps you've done the course, perhaps you've been involved with Christian Aid for a while, perhaps you've heard nothing. You know, we had people turn up to the first session who are actually very new to all of this, but really wanted to hear about how to take action on poverty, and in particular, how to engage with these newly elected MPs and the power that that represents for change. So do spread the word about those sessions that are there to support and equip you. As I say, people appear at church level to very much be embracing this opportunity to link their faith and their politics. And I am a big fan of when people say that religion and politics don't mix. I wonder which Bible it is they're reading. Those words I'm sure you're aware of with Desmond Tutu, and that's the ad for our next session on Monday the 29th of July. I can share in the follow-up from this meeting how to join with that session. In terms of what's next, I'm sure the dust is perhaps just beginning to settle after the events of the general election, the frantic all-night event last week. And I would now like to share with you our plans going forward in the direction of travel for the next 6 months that we see for churches and supporters across the country. We at Christian Aid are not party political, but we do know that poverty and its causes reflect political choices. In the wake of the election, we are now confronted with this new UK government, and we can call them to stand up for the choices that need to be made to create a more just, more equal, and more sustainable world. You are also aware here in this group that as the climate crisis, extreme inequality, and rising conflict, as those 3 issues increasingly exacerbate poverty, Christian Aid is very much calling on our political leaders to respond right now with boldness and an urgency that equates to the task at hand. This is not a time for tinkering around the edges and managing the status quo. It's very much a time for a new government to advance ambitious action that really will lower the debts for the poorest nations, that will tackle the climate injustice, and that will promote peace. I'd like you to hear it from the words of our Chief Executive now. Perhaps you've already come across Patrick Watt.
The new Parliament is a fresh start, and there's an opportunity to engage your MP on what really matters to you and to your church. As Christian Aid, we're encouraging people to engage with their MP and urge them to take action on poverty. Far too many lives around the world are blighted by the injustice of poverty, and the choices we make in Britain can have a real difference. We're urging action in 3 key areas. Firstly, on climate justice, where we want to see the fund for loss and damage properly resourced. Secondly, on debt cancellation, where we want to see the UK playing its part in ending the burden of unpayable debt for the poorest countries. Finally, as wars around the world rage, we're calling on the UK to use its diplomatic force to be a power for good in the world and to bring peace to people who so desperately need it.
We do have many, many ideas and resources available to help you to make this call for action to our new UK government. In 1 John chapter 3, verse 8, we're encouraged not to love with words alone, but with actions and truth. And what an opportunity we have right now with the newly elected UK Parliament to do just that. Christian Aid, as you've just heard there from Patrick, we are working on these 3 areas, these 3 messages. And for you as our supporters, we have produced really handy crib sheets and films that unpack those asks and make it far more achievable for you to feel comfortable with the messaging, but for you also to feel ready to talk about it with an MP. I'm hoping that later in our Q&A time, we will get a chance to move around the room and to hear where you are, your constituency, and we can talk about the events that have happened and the MPs that you now will have in place. For now, I want to make sure that you feel comfortable with the messaging and with the demands that Christian Aid feel are so vital. So I'm sure something you feel very, very passionately about is the call for climate justice. Last time I met with this group, you were fantastic in helping to escalate that demand for the Loss and Damage Fund, the need for that fund. And thanks to the work of this group, we were able to involve both Bishop Hugh and Bishop Philip. We were able to get into the local media, and it was really wonderful to see what a force for action this Creation Care team can be. So I thank you very much for that, and it would be lovely to think we can achieve similar things in the future. In terms of climate justice, we must call on the new UK government to support those most vulnerable communities and build trust on the global stage. We're looking at this in 3 ways. I'm sure you're all familiar with that Loss and Damage Fund. You hopefully have also followed that whilst different countries have sought to put money into that pot, they have very frustratingly, such as the UK, taken it from the existing aid budget. This is not fresh money, this is not new money, and it's not grants. It's often given in the form of crippling loans, which just make things worse for those countries into the future. So we're looking for new money in the form of grants to support the climate vulnerable communities that need to adapt to mitigate and respond to these disasters. I really, really would encourage you all on this. I revisited the A Rocha survey in our break, having heard about the wonderful job you were all doing, moving forward with your bronze and your silver locally, perhaps some gold as well in Cornwall. But I was slightly disheartened, even in the global section of that survey, it doesn't quite hit home enough or do enough justice to the fact that those who are suffering first and worst in terms of their lives being overturned and jeopardized by the climate crisis need our support now. And it would be wonderful if, in addition to the work you're doing with those awards, if you could continue to build in that global perspective as well, which these 3 calls are all about. So taking the vast profits of fossil fuel companies, we heard Margaret referring to BP and Shell, and making sure that they contribute towards the Loss and Damage Fund. And then finally, ending all new oil and gas developments in the UK, and investing in good quality, secure green jobs. So there are 3 key asks and the things that we would love to hear you discussing with your newly elected MPs. As I'm sure you're aware, there is a huge interconnection between our asks. We've talked about climate. If we now mention debt, over 60% of African countries spend more on their debt payments than they do on health and education. And who is winning in this? Mostly private lenders making vast profits. I can't see all of your faces on my screen right now, but I'm sure if we did a hands up, many of you will have been part of the Jubilee 2000 debt campaign back in the year 2000, and remember the huge groundswell of support for the cancellation of debt. I was very lucky to be at Birmingham University at the time when Birmingham hosted the summit, and we formed the huge chain for that international meeting and that call for the cancellation of debt. And to think now, 24 years later, crippling debts are still undoing development in these poorest nations is absolutely horrific. So I believe so passionately in the need for this removal of the debt in order for the development and the response work to happen in these ways. We're talking about health and education paying the price. Christian Aid's calling on the new UK government to introduce legislation to support that debt relief. It could put millions of people out of poverty, pull them out of poverty. Alongside this, Christian Aid is calling for the UK to help forge a new global agreement on making lending and borrowing more responsible and more sustainable. And in the team that I'm in, I'm delighted to be able to share that I've watched those conversations happening behind the scenes. I've heard from the advocacy team how positive those conversations can be and have been over the last few months with those in Parliament. And I just hope that we can now see some of this moving into the conversation of the new government as well. And that's where our role comes in, continuing to provide that mandate and that pressure to see things like this on the table for discussion for the new government. They are in a brand new phase. They are listening. They are eager. They have got a million priorities, but we need to make sure that these calls for climate justice, for debt, and in a moment for peace are at the top of their agenda before things become too signed and sealed and decided in the directions that they're going to go. Now is our opportunity and your opportunity to get your voices heard locally, feed in these priorities and escalate them up to the national decision tables. So finally, in terms of peace, at Christian Aid, we believe conflict needs to be tackled by dealing with root causes. And again, as I've made this point, they are all so interconnected. Action to tackle the climate crisis and address economic inequality would go a long way to ensuring peace. The 3 are so related. We also need to invest in targeted community-led conflict prevention approaches. Christian Aid is calling for the next UK government, the new UK government, to use its voice, its money, and its influence to be a voice for peace in the world. 3 really, really simple things to bring up and address with your local MP. The root causes of war by tackling economic inequality and the climate crisis, spending more of UK aid and defence budgets on peace building, and voting for peace at the UN. And a 4th, stopping arms sales to governments or groups who are violating international law or human rights. Such meaningful and tangible things for you to be able to bring up and discuss and put on the table at this stage. And as I can't hit home the message hard enough that the 3 are very, very interrelated topics. It might feel like quite a lot of information if you're preparing for a conversation, but the fact that the 3 are so intertwined, one leading to the other and impacting the other, does make them very, very pertinent to bring up in the same conversation. And each one, Christian Aid has prepared a brilliant short film, just a couple of minutes on each, These could not only help you as individuals to feel more equipped and comfortable, but they're perfect for being shared with a small group or in a church service, if you were given the opportunity to start talking about these issues with your wider church as well. Hopefully that gives you a flavour of the issues that Christian Aid is working on, the issues that we're trying to bring very much to the hearts and minds of our supporters. And I'd just like to reiterate why we see politics as the answer and is so central to the solution. Just as Jesus shared bread with those he encountered and those he challenged, we are encouraging you right now to break bread with your newly elected MP. There is a recurring theme here. We would like to ask you to talk to your newly elected MP about why you care about poverty in all of its guises, all of the three different ways we've just been discussing together, those lenses of debt, climate and peace, and to urge them to use their position in the UK Parliament to act. And this truly is an opportunity to show faith in action. And we want to support you every step of the way. And we truly believe that this resource, this Breaking Bread resource, has got everything that you and your church needs to help you comfortably engage with your newly elected MP and get them thinking about poverty. Breaking Bread centres on encouraging you, as it says, to share a meal or even just tea and biscuits, however simple it needs to be, with your MP. The idea is it's an informal way to start building, and I say start, many of you may be part way through this process, you may be a very long way through this process, depending on your personal circumstances and the knowledge of the person that you now have as an MP. Perhaps the MP is new to you, but perhaps you do have experience of meeting with and lobbying and discussing issues and getting to know MPs in the past. But the emphasis is very much on relationships. We know the people you choose to listen to in life, the people you choose to take advice from, seek the ear of, seek the shoulder of when times are bad, the people you turn to are those who've bothered to invest in a relationship with you. And so we're very much encouraging you to see your relationship with your MP in the same vein and in that spirit of openness and of friendship and hospitality. The Breaking Bread Guide gives you 10 simple steps to help you think about how to break bread with your MP. You may well, as a church, many of you, I'm sure, already have a number of events in your calendar coming up in the future. They may well be food-based events, something that your church or your community could invite your MP along to. But we don't leave it there. This guide will help you think about what are you going to talk about, how are you going to arrange the event, how will you make it flow and feel comfortable, how will you invite others in the congregation or perhaps other churches to work with you as well and make it collaborative. You can either download this guide from our website or you can get it posted to your home if you'd rather have a paper copy. So it's everything you need from start to finish to think through an event with your new MP. I would like to remind you, as we approach the year ahead, that of the 650 MPs we have nationally, 335 are new, the largest number in modern history. And as I say, we're here to support you every step of the way as you develop and nurture this poverty-busting relationship with your newly elected MP. I think some of you know David Hart already, but he is in Cornwall right now. Well, he doesn't live in Cornwall, I'm afraid, but he is covering Cornwall and he will very happily travel to Cornwall. He lives in Somerset, but he's very, very happy to travel for work and come to events and support you. And what he's offering to do in Devon and Cornwall at the moment is to hold a gathering. You might even want to call it a workshop. You might want to get people together, perhaps from 2 or even 3 constituencies, and hold a meeting led by David. If I'm lucky, I might even get to come along myself. It's very much about how can we plan the most effective breaking bread gathering with our MP. How are we going to collaborate? We know that MPs appreciate numbers. We know they appreciate opportunities to be in the press. So we will make this event as worthwhile as possible for all parties concerned. But the very, very important thing to remember is that the political system does need to be part of the solution if we're truly going to overcome poverty. Poverty is an outrage because it's not inevitable. It wasn't part of God's original plan, and it is very much a sign of our broken world. And so ultimately, we recognize that poverty is the result of choices that have been made by people in power and perpetuated through often unjust attitudes, policies, and structures. And so that is why Christian Aid right now is saying we've got to look at those systems, those structures, those policies, and those that control them if we're going to make long-term change possible. And we urge you to start thinking about that at the most doable level, which is with your local MP, a relationship that you can be part of and you can own locally. And then together, we will all start to make steps, take strides towards that more just, equal, and stable world that we also desire. And I'd like to close with a prayer now before opening it up to discussion about the different constituencies that you represent and where we're all coming from today. But first, I'd like to share a prayer with you. God of righteousness, who spoke through the prophets, help us to speak truth to power. When we are tempted to be spectators, transform us into actors, working together to build your kingdom. Help us to pay attention to the experiences of those who carry the unjust burden of poverty. Challenge us to put our faith into practice, to love our neighbours in deeds as well as words. Inspire us with your spirit to follow your call, that we may do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with you. Loving God, with you all things are possible. We pray for an end to poverty in our communities and around the world. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So yes, if it's all right, Julia, I wondered if at this point we could have a bit more of a free-for-all. And here I've got a list of 6 constituencies. We are all in Cornwall, aren't we? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, not right now. See Duncan. And yeah, maybe a little bit about just your initial reactions. There is a huge emphasis there on embracing that opportunity to have as we're calling it, a poverty busting relationship with your local MP. I know I've spoken with some of you in the past about MP engagement and building that relationship. Can I hear your initial thoughts and reactions, how doable it may sound to you or not? Yeah, go for it, Andrew.
Yeah, what struck me in this and in the election, one of the big issues is refugees. And it seems to me we should be pointing out that though this isn't a short-term solution, this Christian Aid policy, one of the best ways of, in a way, tackling the refugee crisis. Because if people have got jobs and if they've got security at home, then we won't be seeing the refugee crisis that we're doing. And I think it's important that that link is made, because many of our constituencies are not going to act selflessly. But if it can be argued that this is actually, a win-win policy, that's going to be helpful.
Sure. No, thank you very much, Andrew.
Well, I just want to say, Katrine, that I thought that was great. I love the 3 points near the end there that just help us. we've had, and we've had 3 discussions with our MP, now new MP, in the recent weeks, really fruitful. But I love the idea of the Breaking the Bread resource. I need to look at it and just get stuck in a bit more with the small group we run and so on. So I just want to thank you. It's really inspiring. Thank you very much.
Oh, goodness. No, thank you. And like I say, David Hart locally, but also us as a campaigns team, are very much here to support and work alongside anyone who'd like to engage with that Breaking Bread resource and think about the MP engagement. So do stay in touch and let us know how we can help as well. But I'm really pleased you found the 3 points. And I do think there is a real beauty and pragmatism about the Breaking Bread as a concept, isn't there? And bringing that to the table with your MP. There's even a template letter to invite your MP. Yes, Julia, please.
Well, all I was going to say, so what you were saying really resonates. I think it's really good. And the Breaking Bread concept, it's so simple, but it's very powerful and very effective, and it's proved it time and time again. And I'm thinking in particular, for example, of the Big Lunch campaigns with the Eden Project and other similar projects, where it is just gathering people around, in a simple way to share conversation, and to do it over food and and a cup of something. And it's such a warm way of doing it, which brings people together in a more conducive and relaxed and positive way. And I think it's great. And I want a copy of Breaking Bread.
Oh, that is
Anyway, it's
fantastic.
brilliant. I think that's really, really good.
I'm turning it into a quote as we speak, Julia.
No, don't do that.
No, I'm kidding.
That's it.
But thank you.
But I really like the idea of David Hart holding this gathering
Yes.
as well, bringing us as constituencies together. It's a gathering or a workshop.
Fantastic.
This Breaking Bread gathering, I think that could be just splendid.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Don't feel that you only have to say positive things. It's absolutely fine to come on mic and say it's hard work, it's not achievable. It's, I want to hear however you're feeling. If you think politics is not for churches, if whatever it is you feel you must share. Yeah, go for it, Kirsten.
Hi. I'm very enthused by what you said, and I think the material you produced is very good and fantastic, and the message is very clear. And I love the concept of breaking bread with your MP. Something you said, I think you said, was the importance for MPs to have big sessions, to have for it to be high profile. They are very busy people, and to invite them along, the concept of inviting them along to have tea with me in St Adwenna in the middle of a field, I can't see working. See, what I wanted to suggest was, could we consider it being a bit more coordinated? I'm in the constituency of North Cornwall, which is huge geographically. It's traditionally a Lib Dem constituency, and it's gone back to the Lib Dems with a very, very good local MP, Ben Maguire, with whom I would be very happy to have dialogue. I don't think we've probed his attitude towards Christianity or religion. I don't think that matters, because what we're talking about is universal, isn't it? A multi-faith, no faith as well. And I was wondering whether, under the banner of Creation Care and Christian Aid, we couldn't do something kind of work together, so that the benefices, I know it's an awful lot, it's maybe even an archdeaconry of North Cornwall, could get together and host a Breaking Bread event in a central place, to which we could all come along we would be a large group of people if all the benefices in North Cornwall were engaged in this, and it would make us seem more powerful a group that needs to be reckoned with, and a group that needs to be listened to, rather than just a sideline. Because I mean, particularly the Church of England is very sidelined now, and gone down various routes that don't appeal to most people. But, you know, the thing is, if we could all get together as Christians to meet our new MP, that would be absolutely fantastic, and multi-denominational as well. Obviously, not Anglican. I happen to be an Anglican, but all denominations. If we could find a big venue and invite everybody to come and say these things, he would listen.
Oh, absolute music to my ears. Everything you said, Kirsten. I mean, you're so right that we'd like to think there's a time and a place where he would potentially. It's fantastic to hear about Ben, your new Lib Dem, come to a field with a couple of you. But at the same time, you're right. They are so pressured, absolutely inundated with requests right now. And if we're able to offer up something sizable, when you say Christians coming together to meet their new MPs, that a voice to be listened to be reckoned with, the benefices of North Cornwall, something which is collaboration and unity, is going to be very, very hard hitting and appealing to that new MP. Yeah. So Rosie, in terms of the scope, I was going to say before Ben and Ellie Shard, the scope for people to be involved with, say, the Talking Climate Justice event, and then with the escalation of the loss and damage, letting Bishop Philip and Bishop Hugh know, like, you do represent a great grouping here. Do you think there might be scope how do you kind of correspond between meetings if you want to create energy around something?
Well, this group has like a newsletter. It meets monthly. Julia might want to add this. We've got a Creation Care group which meets quarterly. It may be something which could come from this network to that group. And Ben Lilly, he would be the person who probably could like liaise with the bishop, because we've only just got Bishop Hugh at the moment. But yeah. Am I right in saying that, Julia?
I'm sure that the Creation Care group is the way to take that forward. But to say we need to talk with Ben first, to say, and there's 3 of us here who are members of that group. But I'm sure that you're right. That's the way ahead. So discussion with Ben first, and then
perfect.
Just the Creation Care group.
And so that's kind of one collaborative force. But as you say, Kirsten, about the benefices of North Cornwall and the power of identifying yourselves in your constituencies, but bringing many, many people together, or several churches together from within a constituency. Equally, I don't want to scare anyone present from thinking it has to be huge, because dare I pluck a number of 15, you know, I'm sure so long as there are several voices which all represent a different church or a different part of a constituency, that would be very, very hard hitting as well. So don't be put off thinking these things have to be 50 people or something to have value, because I'm sure so long as they represent a number of parts within a constituency, that would be really, really meaningful and powerful to the MP. So I'm conscious of time. I must hand back over to Julia, but thank you very, very much. I will share my contact details and everything through Rosie and the slides. And if you have any questions for David and myself, please get in touch.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Catherine. There was so much in that session that really, really resonates with us. And I'm sure that we can move together in all sorts of ways, and very much looking forward to taking that forward. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, just quickly, we've just got a few minutes left. Let me hand over to Rosie to talk about some of the big things that are coming up with the notices.
Yes, of course. We've just had some sneaky chat with some people here about the energy footprint tool. If you're part of a church, can you check with your treasurer or a church warden whether the energy footprint tool has been completed, because the deadline is at the end of the month, We're hoping to get 80% completion rate. So far we got 50, but I know things can move pretty fast. So if you've got any questions or you need any help at all, do come back to me and I can send out paper forms. You don't have to do it online, but it is kind of crucial. That's what I'm going to be spending my next couple of weeks trying to get that up to as high a percentage as we can. Just to say for your diary, we've got the annual Creation Care service this year on the 28th of September. It's going to be held at St Andrew's Church, Redruth, and we have Bishop Pugh talking, and we'll have the usual presentation of awards. But it's going to be a really nice service. We'll have a band, and it will be a chance for us champions just to actually see each other in person and talk afterwards and have a nice cup of tea and see what's happening in your own patch. I'm just thinking, because August is a month when we don't actually meet. Sorry, Helen, did you want to say something?
Date of the Creation Care service, please.
It's the 28th of September. It'll be on the newsletter. Yeah, it's a Saturday at 2 o'clock, St Andrew's Church, Redruth. We're not meeting next month because that's the holiday month, August. We have a break, but we're back meeting in September. As you said, we've got Claire Green coming to talk about her work. That's Thursday, the 12th of September at 10 o'clock. Yeah, so August is hopefully a time for rest, but you might just want to be thinking, well, what should I be doing in September and the autumn coming up to Christmas? September is actually a really busy month because it is Creation Tide. There's lots of resources on the website. If you just type in Creation Tide into Google, you'll get all sorts of resources and it'll be on your newsletter. Also, it's for the first year running Fair Trade Fortnight is going to be held in September from the 9th to the 22nd of September. They're changing this because it is 30 years since Fair Trade has been in existence. And so they're from now onwards, it's going to be held in September on their anniversary. And the website is full of things, 30 things you can do for Fair Trade. Again, that'll be on the notice sheet. And Katrine, last year there was Loss and Damage Day. Is that going to be happening in September? Last year it was on the 22nd. Is that going to be?
I will confirm and get back to you, Rosie.
Yeah, thank you. Because maybe we could pitch
Day.
something on that, maybe after what we've had today, whether we can pull that together on that day or make a statement or something.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
there'll be other things in the notice in the newsletter, but there's just a few of them. Thank you.
Rosie, I've just had a mad idea. Have we
Yes.
thought of inviting our new MPs to the Creation Service on the 28th of September?
No, we haven't. That's a really good idea.
I mean, I think it's the Labour Party conference weekend,
Okay.
but
I
you
think
could
that was on the plan, but we were waiting for the election to find out who our MPs were.
you could get the Lib Dems to come along.
Yeah, the invitations really need to go now, so I think you're right. Thank you, Kirsten, for highlighting that.
Is that it, Rosie?
Yeah, that's it from me.
Oh,
Thank you ever so much,
smashing.
everybody.
Just one other thing I just wanted to mention, which you may have picked up, but I only picked it up yesterday, and that's the Eco Church survey is changing. It's changing to help us make the most impact on climate and nature. And basically, I don't know anything in the way of details, but one important thing is that churches have up until the end of the year to apply for bronze, silver or gold under the current system, under the current survey. So that's just something worth bearing in mind. I know in the debriefs earlier, people were talking about applying for
Okay, so if you haven't got very far with your next stage, would it probably be worth just halting for a bit until the new thing comes through?
I think it depends on where you're scoring. I mean, I would go for it. Don't
Yeah.
do what I do, which is to dilly-dally and not
Yeah,
do it. I would
they
do
said
it
to
because
continue.
you might find you're almost at bronze,
Well,
and
we've
then they
done the, we've
change the
got
rules.
bronze. We've got the bronze.
Well, you might be almost at silver, and you know, if you press on now before the end of this calendar year, you might get your silver. They might change the rules of the game, and you might have a lot more to do to get the new silver. I would
Okay.
press on,
Yes.
because I don't think it's going to get worse. I mean better. I mean, I think it's going to be more complicated rather than easier, if you see what I mean.
More challenging, could be
More challenging,
more
yes.
More,
challenging.
It
more
might be.
meaningful.
Yeah, we'll
more
probably
meaningful,
lead
yeah.
one of our sessions once we
Yeah.
know more about it. We may have one of our maybe a speaker from Arusha to come and tell us, so
That
we could
sounds very good
try
idea.
and do that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Great.
And I'm constantly being told, and I know I don't act on it. So can I just share with you, if you come across some questions which you feel are slightly unfair because of your context, don't do what I do, which is to sit around and moan about it. Actually record which question it is, write down what you think the problem is, and communicate with Ben.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Lovely. Thank you, Kirsten.
That's what I think I should
Thank you.
do. I don't do it. So
No, that very valid points then. Very valid point. So we're going to close now. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming and contributing so much. Particular thanks to Katrine, and we look forward to moving forward with you, and to Rosie, of course, for holding us all together in very difficult circumstances. Enjoy summer. Loads of blessings to you. Let's just close with the creation care prayer. If we've got time. Have we got time?
Yes, we won't be cut off.
That's splendid. So we'll finish with the creation care prayer, and after each little verse we say together, we remember the goodness of God. So, Creator God, in bright light and dull darkness, in the energy of each day and the rest that comes with night, we remember the goodness of God. In the heavens high above our heads, in waters that run deep around the world, we remember the goodness of God. In solid land and flowing seas, in vivid flowers and fruit-laden trees, we remember the goodness of God. In the rising and setting of the sun and the cycles of the seasons, in the patterns of the shining stars, we remember the goodness of God. In oceans teeming with fish, in skies filled with birds, we remember the goodness of God. In a world filled with animal life, and in ourselves as human beings, we remember the goodness of God. And God looked and saw all that he had made. And indeed, it was very, very good. In rest and reflection, in work, wonder, and worship, we remember the goodness of God. Amen. So, blessings to you all. Bye-bye. Have a lovely summer. That's it.